Mr.
Woo!
Ian Simmons just confessing to me, coming straight back from
A certain
his
movie. I don't know if I can actually talk about
a certain
anything.
movie that I'm sure you all know of, a certain movie that's coming out this week that had press screenings today. It involves something shooting out of something else many times. So there you go.
Yeah, yeah. It was a documentary about gun control. No, I can't say what it was, but I have Thwiplash. Sorry.
Ooh, nice. Whiplash. That's great.
Yeah, sorry. I got
That's really
my I got a little itch on my wrist here. I'll just I gotta
I see
scratch it.
that. Yeah, I see you got the band. You the rest of us dregs will not be seeing this movie that will not be mentioned. Some until Thursday. Others of us are being a good dad and waiting for, when we can watch it with our Spider-Man, very Spider-Man fan son who will be
Why
back
would
from
you
college. So
why would you bring up Spider-Man? Anyway,
anyway,
but
I
I
didn't say
will.
that was the movie. I'm just saying he's a fan of Spider-Man and we'll be going to see a movie next
Oh,
week. It
okay.
could be Matrix, it could
Well,
be.
I was gonna say, if I would say you're the luckiest of them all because this is a more than the Fast and the Furious, if you can believe it, Mark.
Mm.
This is a movie that you want to share with the family.
Awesome. Awesome.
Hmm.
Well, good to hear. Well, here's another film that you should share with all of the family. Very excited, folks. Welcome once again to the spoiler room. Mark the Movie Man here with Mr. Ian Simmons. Hello, Ian. How are you?
I'm ecstatic. I got to see two amazing movies today. And I'm not even kidding. Like, I feel like an idiot describing Revenge of the Ninja as one of my new all-time favorite movies, but damn it, it's true.
I did not expect this. So, yes, folks, it is Cannon Fodder Month here, Ninja Cannon Fodder Month. We're covering all three ninja films from the Cannon Group library. It's considered the Cannon Group Ninja Trilogy, quote, trilogy. Yeah, the reason they're trilogy is because Cannon released these three films back to back, and they have the same actor, at least one of the same actors in all three films. Different roles, but pretty much they involve ninjas and they have the same actors. So it's the Ninja Trilogy, but we'll take it. It's canon. Come on, right? Uh,
It's canon, but there's no canon in these
there
movies,
is
in these
no
three movies.
there is no canons. There are no canons in these three movies, but action, oh boy. Mr. Ian Simmons, if you wouldn't mind, please give the synopsis, if you could, for Revenge of the Ninja from 1983.
I'll try. I mean, I let me just start with being thoroughly confused because I think I might have read the synopsis, but I just assumed that it had something to do with the first Enter the Ninja, which we talked about last week. Both star Sho Kosugi. In this movie, he's playing Cho Osaki, not confusing at all. Um, and he's a simple, family man living in Japan. He's got an American friend named Braden who wants to bring him back to the States to open up an art gallery for some reason. The movie opens with a cadre of black clad ninjas with like red detail in their outfits attacking the Osaki compound household, murdering just about everybody except for Cho and his young son, Kane. And Kane, I believe, is played by, Kane Kosugi, who's Sho Kosugi's kid in real life.
Yep, he has both his kids in this film, actually.
Oh, who's the
So,
other one? Is one of them the baby?
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Um, okay, so the both brothers play the same kid at different ages. That's kind of cool.
Actually, no, Kane plays, I think, the kid that gets ninja starred, and he also plays the kid later on.
Oh, okay. I
So,
thought you meant he
no.
played like one of his, like he had an infant kid and they played, okay.
No,
I
not
forgot
as
about the
far.
kid who got ninja starred. Wow, yeah.
Yeah, there's a kid.
This movie doesn't mess around.
This film does not mess around. No.
So essentially, after this massacre, Cho and little Kane go to the States, and it flashes forward like 6 years later. So you've got little Kane running around. He's a 6-year-old boy getting bullied in the park by, some very unfortunate tough kids who get their asses handed to them. And Grandma Osaki is there kind of taking care of things. And then you've got Cho opening this art gallery with Braden. But it's all a front. It's a sham because Braden is laundering powder heroin. It's not cocaine. It's actually powder heroin in these like Japanese, samurai sculpture dolls that are in this gallery. And he's got this aide named Kathy who's kind of in on it, but she's also sweet on Cho because, who wouldn't be on Sho Kasugi? There's also an Italian mob boss involved in this somehow. And I guess another Japanese gangster outfit that we don't really ever see. They're just kind of referenced. And Braden's sort of caught in the middle of this. And he also, this is like a slasher ninja movie. And I'm all about it because turns out Braden, is also a ninja. He's studied in Japan for like 20 years. He's got a black outfit and this cool shiny silver mask.
He's a demon ninja is what
demon ninja.
Demon ninja, yeah.
It'd be cool if that mask was actually the same mask from the movie Demons.
That would be cool.
Version. Yeah. Brian Martinez's brain would explode. But I gotta say, so whenever someone threatens his operation or he wants revenge, he puts on this outfit and he goes and he like creatively, horribly murders people. That's why I call it a ninja slasher, because there are just whole sequences where he's going around like Jason Voorheesing people, but using ninja weapons.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. And of course, what happens? Cho finds out that his so-called friend is actually a killer and a drug dealer, and it becomes personal. And Braden murders Grandma in a spectacular bit of battle. And there's just so many wonderful fight scenes. I was afraid starting this movie that it was going to be another Enter the Ninja, which a movie I really dug. But as we talked about last week, that opening with just like the ninjas like doing this stuff against the black screen, that's kind of how the opening fight was. And it was sort of lame, except when people started to get like the 8-year-old got the ninja star to the face. But everything just keeps escalating and getting cooler in terms of the battles and weirder in terms of the situations. The climax takes place on like the roof of an LA high rise on a volleyball court. What?
I love it. And we have to roll back before we really dive into it.
Yes,
you were correct. Uncredited, his brother to Kane was the kid who gets the ninja star, who was the first kid for Cho. He's the one that dies, but he's uncredited. But that was his brother, his older brother, and then then Kane was in the rest of the film. So he had both his kids in this movie. But yeah, a kid within the first like 5 minutes, a kid gets a ninja star to the face. I was like, because you're watching and the adults are kind of getting it. You're like, okay. And then, the kids running around. I'm like, oh, are they really going to? And they do. Full on makeup ninja. You see it right. I mean, these ninjas don't mess around, man.
No, and I feel like they had one of these in Enter the Ninja. Like it's one of those almost like bow squared shaped stars, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you throw it, it almost looks like normal size, but when it makes impact, it's like the size of a serving platter.
They always seem to get a little bigger. All the ninjas throwing stars always seem to get a little bigger in these movies. But yeah, I mean, it seems bigger. But then when Cho shows up, we got the wonderfully talented Sho Kasugi in this, and oh man, when he gets his wrath out on these ninjas who have annihilated pretty much his whole family, it's crazy. You wouldn't think after you saw Enter the Ninja in 81, that opening sequence, you're like, they can't top that. And they do. Friggin' Cho, there's a guy with a ninja with a bow and arrow. These 3 ninjas, they shoot arrows at him at almost exactly the same time. He grabs 2 and you're like, okay. And then there's this third one and his head goes back. You're like, oh, did they cut him or something? And he comes up and he's got the thing in his teeth. And then he takes the arrows and kills a ninja with them. I'm like, that sequence alone, I'm like, this movie's so badass.
I love that every like bow staff or rod or like kind of blunt instrument in this movie secretly contains a
A
blade of
knife.
death. Everyone.
Every single, it's not just a bow staff, folks. Uh, and we are joined by a couple of folks. So glad they could join us from the Twitch stream. We have Gingham Ginger. So glad she could join us. And we have Mr. Lee Marohn back with us as
Hello.
well. So glad you fine folks could join us talking about this wonderful, wonderful film. I'm so happy you liked this film. I was wondering.
No, I didn't like it. I loved it. I was over the moon. Like by the time this movie ended, like okay, I'm just gonna jump to it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I gotta tell you, my favorite moment, possibly one of my favorite moments in any movie, it's at the end when Cho goes on his raid against Braden and like in the high rise. Well, he's going after the mob boss kind of. You know, Braden's gonna be there. So you got two rival ninjas going after the same like shady organization, eventually each other. But you got all these like Goomba, you know, big mob guys with the machine guns and stuff. By the way, standing in front of a business in LA in broad daylight with these massive guns just hanging out, no problem. But there's a guy goes into a stairwell and he sees Cho with like the ninja mask. He's got like kind of the face covering and you can see the eyes. The guy yanks down Cho's face mask. Cho rears back like this and blows ninja stars into the guy's face. He had a mouth full of ninja stars just waiting to go, and kills the guy horribly.
Then there's the other guy that comes up right by him with the gun that he manages to dodge and kill, you know, aces him as well. That whole sequence is all these action sequences are just amazeballs. They literally are amazeballs. And Lee actually said that he saw this before he saw Enter the Ninja, and he loved it.
I'm sorry, because seeing this and then watching it, as much as I dig Enter the Ninja, this would be like a huge drop off.
It's a huge drop off. And it's directed by Sam Furstenberg, who would go on to do a lot of action, direct a number of action films. Actually, this was only his second feature. I was reading in, prepare for the shill, folks. The Canon Film Guide, Volume 1, 1980 to 1984, Austin Trunick. Anyway, I was reading about this, and he's got a wonderful long interview with Sam, talking about not only this film, but his career with Canon and his connection with Canon groups. And also an interview with an older Kane, like recent Kane, who went on to do his own film career after he grew up a bit. Wonderful interviews. But in there, they talked to Furstenberg to Sam, and he had never done action film before.
What?
Yeah, this was his first action film. He had never pictured himself doing action films, but he said that he realized that what was interesting, because he would also go on to direct Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Whoa.
Yeah, this is the same director, and he's directing the next one, which we're talking about next week, Ninja 3. So I'm very excited. I'm very excited. Yes. But he says Sho Kosugi kind of took him under his wing, according to the interview in the book, which you folks should check out. And he said, taught him everything about ninja. And what he realized is he didn't have to necessarily know action and fighting. Sho Kosugi handled all the choreography for the fight scenes in this. He just had to shoot it. He didn't have to necessarily know how to do it and all the integral parts, but he just had to know how to tell it visually. And so he said for him, that made it a little bit easier for him. You know,
I would still think that would be a daunting feat, because I'd have to go back and watch like really what the camera is doing and where it's placed, because I wasn't conscious of it at all. I felt like I was in the room, like watching all this stuff happening. I mean, even more impressive, I think, than Sho Kosugi, who's great, but young Kane, I don't know how old he actually was when he made this movie.
I believe he was 10 when he made this film.
The scenes where he is especially sparring with Kathy, and then I think he actually does some fighting with Braden.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't look rehearsed. It doesn't look like we trained this kid to do these scenes. It looks like he's in an actual life and death struggle, and he's like sliding between people's legs and like getting his ass kicked, and but also getting it back. I was like, this is really, I could watch an entire movie just about this little boy.
Yeah, I could too. I mean, and it's interesting because especially for basically an American action film, when you have kids doing action, it always feels just so much more laid out and choreographed, and they keep things simple. But what has helped is, and I found this out too in the book you should pick up, is that talking to him, apparently, like he right after he began to walk, they started training him. So he was training since he was like 1.5 years old. So by the time he got to here, he had been training for almost 9 years.
Oh my God.
Martial arts. So that's why he's able to pull it off. And you can believe the fact that, yeah, he's actually kind of kicking this adult's ass. Which Ashley Ferreira, who only had one other film, she was a fashion model, I guess, who they got for this film. She pulls off fairly convincing martial arts as well. I am impressed that everybody who does martial arts in here actually feels like they're, whether or not they are or not, feel like they're experienced fighters enough. It doesn't feel as predictable or whatever you want to call it, as laid out as you've seen in some other films. Would you say that is true with most of the folks who do martial arts in this?
Yeah, and I think part of that is because they feel like extensions of the scenes that they're in, and not like,
Right.
okay, here's another martial arts scene. It feels like, because some of these slashery fights lead into martial arts
Mm-hmm.
scenes, and vice versa. It all felt very natural, even though it became absurd. I gotta ask you a question, because I don't know if there's a good answer to this or what. I kind of hope there's not. On that rooftop scene at the end,
yes,
Cho thinks he gets the best of Braden. He takes his sword and literally slices him in half.
yes.
Doesn't slice him in half. He slices in half a life-size dummy replica of Braden. What the fuck?
That's because Braden is that demon ninja. He's got the magic. That's why he also teleports about too, even though they don't really call him that, or say he uses his ninja powers. And that's the ultimate ninja power that I will say I've not seen in any film prior or since, to where more than once the villain has teleported and created a foam replica of himself to get chopped.
But that's the thing, is I thought he just like had it in his Batman
No.
utility belt or something, because I know the mysticism of this movie is all over the place, because you see the eyes on the silver mask. A lot of times it's just like cutouts so you can see his eyes, but sometimes when he hypnotizes Kathy, like legit hypnotizer, they glow green. Later on in that same rooftop battle, there's like they're in a hot tub and a hand reaches out and Cho cuts off the hand, but it turns out it's like a robot hand that
it's
was
a fake
reaching up
hand.
Again, what? And if you have all these mystical powers, why deal with like foam dummies and like mechanical hand props? Shouldn't they just be like phantoms or some shit?
It's all subterfuge. It's all misdirection. You see, that way, while you're distracted going, what the fuck do I have this robotic hand in my hand? He comes up behind you, or comes up and pulls you in and kills you. You see, it's to distract you.
Speaking of missed erections, Lee has the Braden blow up doll comment.
Lee mentions Braden blow up doll, which you get one of, and then you get the fake arm. So you could technically say 2 Braden blow up dolls in this 20-minute action sequence.
I love Braden because he is at once a terrible actor and a great presence. He's like, Joe, I'm gonna come after you. I've got your kid. Don't mess with my heroin.
Well,
What?
the
But then he's like this crazy presence. Like when he dresses up in the ninja outfit, I swear you can still see some of the paunch. Like I don't know if he was a stuntman or what, but they got a stuntman with the same like lame LA art wannabe art dealer paunch. I loved it.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Sprain, you give him props. You don't know if he's playing the long game or if he just happened to come across this, but it took him like 6 years to do this doll, like the doll store. And then now that he has his dolls there that are handcrafted and imported, now he's using it as a front to move heroin.
Mhm.
For the, I mean, you assume it's the Japanese mafia, the Yakuza, that he's doing this for, to the most cliche. If you looked up organized crime, head of organized crime, it would show C. Cafano, aka Mario Gallo, in this film, because this guy, take every trope you've ever seen, every mafia movie Joe Pesci has ever been in, take all of those characters and mash them into one, and you get Cafano.
Well, that's the thing. Is like this movie, it revels in stereotypes, but it only has like reverence, I think, for like the ninja and like the Japanese culture as represented by the Kasugis. But
Yeah,
like in addition to our Kafano and his cadre of mobsters, you've got the hitman that he kind of outsources,
right.
Chief, played by Don Shanks. He like literally walks into frame. And he's like, "Oh, they call him Chief because he is literally a cartoon Indian character. He's just
he
missing the headdress."
he literally looks like Spirit from G.I. Joe. I mean, this
I was gonna
guy.
say there's that other scene in the park where they come across like the village people gangbangers. You
Yeah,
got the guy who's Japanese, because he's wearing a giant rising sun, ripped sleeve shirt. You got the black guy, and you got the
cop.
Italian,
Yeah,
and the cop, and like,
yeah. They
oh my
literally
god,
have the village people in here that play villains at some point. Uh, yeah, when he yells out Chief, when Cafano yells out Chief, and then they cut away because haven't seen this guy until now. He cuts
no.
away, he goes, Chief, and so you go take out this guy, and he literally stands into frame, and he's in full indigenous person, like cliche, like wow. When he popped up, I was just like, am I seeing this right? Is this actually happening on screen right now? And yes, it is, folks. It is something that, you know, it boggled my mind that they went there with that character. And guess what he fights with? Because there's this wonderful action sequence because he heads a group of henchmen to go steal the dolls that have the heroin in. So they're double crossing Braden and the Yakuza. So our man Cho goes after them. And at one point he has to fight the chief who has tomahawks
Mm-hmm.
to complete the image because, he I'm just like, well, at least they committed to the gimmick, but wow.
See, that's the thing. I don't know if you can appropriate your own culture, but this seems like they did.
I don't know, but it was.
And I wondered where I'd heard the name Don Shanks before, because
Mhm.
that's the guy who played Chief.
Right.
He actually played Michael Myers in Halloween 5, which was very interesting.
But at least he was not doing Michael Myers in this. He was full on. Yeah.
He also of note, he did the stunts for High School Musical 3.
There were stunts in that. I don't remember that, but that would have made it probably a lot more interesting.
I can't speak to that. My wife and I have a standing date in the future. We've been talking about it for a decade. We're gonna drop the kids off at the in-laws, get a lot of booze, and just marathon all the High School Musical movies.
Oh my! Wow, that's true love right there. That is true love right there, or true something. I'm not sure what, but more power to you, my friend.
Well, thank you. I got intoxicated watching again, I'm not kidding here, folks. One of the best chase scenes
Oh my God, yes.
I've ever seen in a movie, where like before, like the bunch of guys, I think led by Chief, go on a raid. They raid the gallery. They're trying to steal all this stuff. Taking out the back alley. Cho shows up, or Sho, because it's Sho Kasugi. Don't even bother with his character name. It's just Sho Kasugi. Yeah. And he tries to stop them, and a fight ensues. The main guy looks oddly like Richard Dreyfuss.
Yeah, he does actually.
And they fight, and there's like a shootout, but then there's they get away in the van, but Sho pursues them
on foot.
On foot. You thought the Indiana Jones, the Raiders, kind of pursuit with the truck against the Nazis was cool. Yeah, Revenge of the Ninja has that beat. Like it's 10 times cooler, because the camera, like, this is 1983. The camera's like going, first shows on top of this moving van, and then he's on the front, and then he's smashing through the front windshield, going in through the van, kicking people's asses in the back of the van. The thing flies open, and he's like kicking people out, and then he ends up dragged behind it and surviving.
He gets dragged behind it. He gets up on the van. He gets rolled off, doesn't let that stop him, goes running after the van, cuts it off, jumps onto the back of the van again. And gets dragged again, and he actually struggles, and it's actually a tension-filled thing, because he's crawling up this broken door that keeps getting more broken, and this van is moving, folks. And I was reading the book, that van, it's not sped up footage. This van is actually moving fast with them on top of the van and doing these stunts. It is moving fairly quickly. So that's not sped up, and it was rather dangerous, but yeah, and they use very well padded pants, but it's not Cho though. It's the stunt coordinator for it. I forgot his name offhand. He's ended up coordinating action for a number of folks, but he ended up being the guy being dragged, but he had well padded pants on, but he's still actually getting dragged. This is a movie that had $1 million budget, folks. And it's insane, these action sequences that they have, which are aplenty, but they still manage to work a story in here too. Not a deep story, but still enough, and still character stuff to where it's not just action sequences either. This film is just mind-boggling. And Lee said, yeah, the cowboy gangbanger with that amazing mustache. Yeah, there's a few of those looked in characters that apparently the director gave the art department some freedom, and they'd come to him with some ideas, and he said, yeah, sure, let's go with it. So that's why you have almost the entire village people as villains at one point in this film.
Can I just mention some amazing dialogue between Kathy and Sho? She wants to train with him in the beginning, and
train.
He says, "Train, yes." He says, "If you want to work out, you forgot your pants." And she says, "You really think I forgot?"
And then they proceed to spar with her with no pants.
Yeah, and I didn't, pause or freeze frame or anything, because I didn't have that kind of time. 12-year-old me definitely would have, but I think you see a lot. Yeah, you see a lot.
There's I think she is wearing some bottoms, just not pants. But it's not the first time in this film that she's not wearing pants. In fact, it seems to be kind of tough for her wardrobe to keep pants on, because later on in the film, she's not wearing pants again. And then there's a scene in there where she's starting to get it on with Braden, and they're starting to have some sexy time, but he gets interrupted by Cafano or whatever, and he finds out, Cafano's going to double cross me, tells her to book, and then he keeps her protected by some henchmen who later on adds the exploitation angle. If there hasn't been enough already to this action sequence, you also get the sexual exploitation angle of him ripping off her top and trying to do a not so pleasant thing to her, a very nasty thing to her. But Braden shows up at time and kills him. And that gentleman, by the way, was Professor Tanaka, who would also have a career as a wrestler. And he'd show up in a few other films, including Running Man, and what else was he in? He's been in a few others as well. But yeah, it's Professor Tanaka in that as the bad guy doing bad things, very bad things. And he was in Missing in Action 3 as well. So there's another canon connection.
Yeah. He gets a nice strangulation death.
With a garrote wire. Freaking Brain just comes in and he's like, "Oh, I see what you're doing," and he just walks past the guy who apparently is oblivious that demon ninja's in the room, and he just kills him.
Yeah. Here's the thing, but no one in this movie, they all need to get their hearing checked. Yeah, because there are so many scenes of like the dojo scene, I think, where the grandmother gets killed. I think either Braden or she was like walking in the room, and then the other person like came up behind them and didn't hear or sense any movement. Even the ninjas, like, people get the best of them. Like, what kind of ninjas are you? Like, there'll be scenes like, folks walking by, and if there's someone sneaking up on me or just walking through the room, I'll look and say, "Oh, what's going on over there?" But no, just it was really bad. I think if there was a bad part of this movie, it's just like, come on, you can hear better than that.
Yeah, they could, but by that you don't care. You don't care.
I didn't. I just thought it was remarkable. I'm like, because the first couple of times I'm like, but at the end I'm like, no, there's something going on with everybody's hearing in this universe. Maybe it's because of all the screaming that Sho Kosugi does when he fights people. He's like, ah, ah, ah. I was all there for it, but I was like, every movie needs to have this kind of fighting style.
Oh, they do. They do. I mean, the choreography for these fight scenes, all of them, is insane. I mean, we talked about this van. It's an extensive van search. I mean, you think it's funny because when I watched it, you see the one moment where he gets thrown off, and you're like, oh, okay, that's where they get away. You fade, music fade. No, his ass gets up and he starts booking it, and he hops on the van again, and the thing goes for 5 more minutes, and then he crawls in the van, and then the van crashes, and then he fights some more. The van, he gets up into the van and fights. The van crashes into a car, and he and the last 2 remaining bad guys, one of them being Chief, fly through the front of the window that he before crashed. They fly through. He gets up. He starts fighting some more. I'm like, I love this guy.
I love him too. But what I thought was great was that when we see him later, like, he realizes that his son's been kidnapped, that his mother or whoever, the grandma, is dead. He's really distraught, and just like, his clothes are all ripped and he's all bloody, and he looks like he's been through the ringer. It's not just he was in a movie called Black Eagle with Jean-Claude Van Damme. Yeah. And I looked up the trailer. I've never seen it, but I saw the trailer for it like a million times when I was like 11 years old. And I recognized the name Sho Kosugi. So I looked it up. I paused this movie and watched that trailer. And it occurred to me that Sho Kosugi reminds me of Jean-Claude Van Damme. Like young JCVD, just in that kind of like the stoicism, the athleticism, not so much in the sense of humor, but when Sho gets ready to exact his revenge and he's going through like the whole ritual and stuff, I'm like, I feel like I'm watching JCVD all over again.
It did have that spirit for sure. Maybe JCVD may have been influenced by him because they worked together on Black Eagle, as well as the number of other, Sho Kosugi became this huge star. And it's just impressive that Cannon was able to put this film together after they started the ninja craze, and they fanned the flames even further with this film, because this just takes it to a whole nother level. And Sho Kosugi is a great actor because he actually is able to bring some emotions and feelings. He's not this like uncaring, like you mentioned, robotic or stoic type. He actually feels some emotion. You feel for this guy and what he's going through, and you will have the most dramatic piece of paper ripping in cinema in this film, because Choke Osaki, Sho's character, at one point he swore off doing ninja anymore. After his family got eliminated, he came to the States brand new. He's still teaching his son, Kane. He's still teaching him how to defend himself, which is a good thing, because he just kicks all sorts of ass. So he's still training him the disciplines, but he himself is no longer considered a ninja. He's not going to draw his sword anymore. Well, after all this, of course, you know where it's going. The minute you see his ninja sword with the piece of paper on it and him saying, I put this on here to show that I will never draw this sword again and, follow my old ninja ways. You're like, oh, well, we're going to see that happen later on,
I didn't see it coming. No. Sorry.
And then later on, when you said when he's going through the ritual, he gets out. It's wonderful too. This guy, Cho Osaki, is awesome because he keeps his ninja stuff in a really cool vault too. It's like at the dojo behind a wall, and he's like, okay, I'm ready. He hits this button and it lifts up and it comes out with a little bit of an electronic sound. Like it's this futuristic chest, and it opens up and he's got all his stuff laid out. And we do the montage of him getting up, and then the final scene that lights behind him, and he just breaks the paper, and then shit's going down. It's like, oh, he broke, and it does, and that's what I like. This film, everything it promises in foreshadowing and setup, it delivers in spades. It's like some films do that, action films, and they kind of like, but not this one.
Well, it's also in love with the weaponry and also the gadgetry that's involved. Was it Braden who did the zip line between the buildings? Yep. Okay. Because there's a scene where he's in this, like, this is in LA, right? I think it's
they shot it in LA. Yep.
Okay. First of all, I don't know if these buildings are still there or what, but there's some really cool architecture. Some really neat, like almost wave honeycombs kind of going on in some of the structures. So you could just watch this movie for the climax, for just to go gaga over the way it looks. But he actually gets up to one of the upper floors of this building, and he puts together this like grappling hook contraption to zip line down to the other building to get into the compound or whatever. And it takes like 3 minutes of him just like, unscrewing stuff and screwing stuff and like bolting this to the thing and then, shooting this over here. And then he finally goes down. I was actually thinking, I remember last week's episode of Hawkeye, I expected him to like get stuck in the middle and just like dangle over the street. But it's neat. It stops the action of the movie, but it's still so interesting to watch him, how he does it, instead of just like, we've seen this kind of thing before, like in Batman, where he just like shoots a thing between the buildings, then he slides down. This is like, how would an actual person get from here to there?
Yeah, because he launches the cable. He does the little fishing line to pull it down so that it clips on, so he acts more of a boat. And then he takes out the fire alarm and actually hooks it up into the sea. Yeah, it's a whole little elaborate thing to where. You're just like, this is really cool. Funny thing that you mentioned it. Yes, I'm mentioning the book again. They talk about that scene, and apparently the stunt guy saved the guy's life, the stunt guy who was actually doing, because they set up the rope and they hadn't done a strength test, and he was just going to go ahead and do the rope stunt. And they're like, no, wait. They put some sandbags on the rope the first time, and they fell. The rope gave way. Yeah, right.
Oh my God.
So yeah, because it just like with the van thing, you're working on a low budget. We're not talking about a whole lot of extra like safety equipment involved in this, but yeah, it's impressive. And then what's great is you would think maybe Osaki in his ninja outfit would go up to the roof. Yeah, well, not to the roof, but to the floor where the rope is, and then use the same rope. But he doesn't. He pulls out his ninja claws and he literally scales the side of this building.
And again, this is, this isn't CG. This isn't like
No.
special photography. You're actually like watching someone scale this building. I mean, he's not like incredibly high up, but he's high enough to think, if I was in downtown LA that afternoon, I think there's a fucking ninja invasion. Like, what's going on here?
Just to catch up on a comment, Robert Baum says his intro to this film came via HBO in 1984. Yeah, I can see that. It's Spider Ninja. There we go. Another reference to a film we won't mention yet that may or may not have been seen by one of us. So
I don't know what you're talking about.
I have no idea. It's poof, just like a puff of smoke, which, again, we've talked about so many great action scenes. There's a great action set piece in the beginning. There's the one where they steal, they've stolen the statues. Then there's the grandma one. Braden goes off Cho. This is where he's ticked off. He's like, holy crap, go figure. The organized crime boss double crossed me. Who would have saw that coming? So he comes back to the dojo looking for Joe, and he finds grandma. But grandma just don't lay down and die. I mean, granted, she is an older woman and they play to that, but she puts up a bit of a fight, down to complete with ninja smoke bomb and pulling out the freaking ball and chain. Literally, she pulls out this ball and chain and pulls Braid down. I loved it. The sequence of grandma.
I loved it too, especially the way that it ended, because she does disappear in a puff of smoke. You're like, okay, where did she go? And then Braden just rips out his sword and rams it through this paper wall of the dojo, and then it starts to bleed. And then he the wall is on an axis, yeah. So he flips it around, and you can see her hanging. Again, this is like Friday the 13th. Mm-hmm. It's Friday the 13th Warrior. Yeah, it's wonderful. I also forgot to. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you're right. The kills in this are actually handled with a little gravitas. They actually have a little bit of brutality to them that lingers. It's not like, oh, look, gone. You linger on it for a while.
Well, I was going to say, there's another, when they gotta have the Godfather style montage of him taking out the gangsters. There's this one guy, a greaseball in a hot tub. There's 3 hot tub scenes. I think this movie was sponsored by Jacuzzi or something, but there's a mobster guy who's making love to his, girl in the hot tub. He gets a poison dart in the back and he collapses on top of the woman. And then Braden Ninja shows up and uses a staff to poke her down and keep her under the water so that she drowns. And it's brutal. And then later on, when they're carting the bodies out, it's on one stretcher. They pull back the sheet and the guy's like, it's going to take 2 days to get these two apart. And oh.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the kills are brutal. Even when the Goombas are getting knocked off. It's like you mentioned, there's the one where one of them I really loved. He was going to go to the room. He was going to get into that room, the Braden. He's going to break into a room and to take out Cafano. And one of Cafano's guys is coming down the hallway going, oh, hey. And he starts running towards him. And what's funny is Braden first tosses down, spiked jacks, right? And then he still futzing with the lock, and then the guy's running towards him, and then he pulls out these silver, marbles basically, and then throws them, and the guy trips and slips on the marbles and lands face first on the star. I mean, talk about premeditated planning out your kill. I mean, it's not like he just threw a star at this guy. He does this elaborate, Wile E. Coyote type of death.
It's definitely a Home Alone kill. And plus, I have to go back and look at that scene again, but it's weird because when the guy falls down, it looked almost like he fell right before the death jacks. He didn't land on him, except for the cutaway when he lifts his head. Right. I'm like, you were nowhere near those things.
Well, they can only do so much within camera, so
sure.
without hurting the actual
Hey, if Braden can manifest a dummy, he can make some deadly jacks go a few feet further down the hall.
The guy who got killed in the hot tub with his girlfriend, that was actually Cafano's nephew. And this is where we get, you know, there's useless cops, and then there's our Lieutenant Dime.
Dime reminded me, he's the young guy, right?
No, he was the older guy. The young guy was the instructor for karate. He's also buddies with Cho, but it's the older guy who was having that conversation with Cafano about, hey, if you know anything about this, let me know. And Cafano's like, you know as much as I know, nothing. You know, but Dime looks like a guy, the old bag of donuts cop, you know.
I mean, no, he looks like an actual bag of donuts.
He does. He does look like
he would go great with David Carradine's Human Beer. But I think I'm more interested in, what was the name of the instructor guy? Was that
that was David? That was Dave.
David?
I
okay.
Believe, yeah.
He reminded me, I could not, maybe you can help me with this. I couldn't figure out his accent. I don't know if it was dubbing or he just like talked weird, because at times he sounded Australian and at other times he sounded like a Southern hick.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. Because I did catch there was a accent to him as well, but I'm not quite sure what it was.
He reminded me of Dallas from Megaforce.
Yeah, he did remind me a bit of Dallas as well. He himself was a national karate champion for like 3 years in that. So I mean, they've got martial arts talent on this cast, and those who didn't have before experience sold it very well. But he's the one that helps with that wonderful playground fight that they have, where they, it's with the village people. And
I love that perspective shot going down the silver tube slide.
Yeah, because Cho is fighting one of the guys, and it's actually a long fight. That's what I love too, is these fight sequences aren't exactly like just short, and they dispatch the menial villain. They have some extensive fights, and he's fighting with him. But when I saw the tube in the back, I'm like, oh, he's going down that. It's just a matter of when is he going down that tube? And he goes down the tube, and you're right. They've got the camera going through the tube, and it was just amazing. It's just, this film is just awesome. When we've talked about some of these films before that, when you think canon, that's the film. Push all those aside. This is like the epitome of a canon film when they're in their heyday, at their rise, where they have a film that's like 94 minutes long, because apparently Menachem and Golan, they had a rule where they didn't want a movie more than like 97 minutes or something like that, between 94 and 97 minutes. So whatever you made, they had to cut down. But they managed to work in the exploitation angles, entertainment, and give it an actual story. You're like, how?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's 90 minutes, but it's actually like an hour 26, because you have the end credits and all that stuff. But yeah, it's a very lean movie, and even though the fight sequences, they seem to go on much longer than they should in a movie that is this length. But you're right, they don't sacrifice story or character. I mean, it's not Shakespeare we're talking about here, but you get just enough so that, when young Kane is kidnapped, you're like, I don't care about a body count. I just want to see that hug at the end, because Sho Kosugi, especially, I think it's because it's his actual son.
Yeah.
When they're reunited, you're like, oh, I got the feels. And I got the feels, even though there's a horrible blood-strewn corpse like 3 feet away. That was some amazing, I don't know what artery he struck, but god damn it. That was some battle royale bloodletting there.
He struck the martial arts vein, is what he struck. There's
the martial artery.
martial artery. There you go. Copyright spoiler room. He hit the martial artery where the pounds per second that the pressure is so high that blood will spew at 100 miles an hour out of the wound that you have because yeah which we'll get to that in just a minute, but I want to talk about just what you were talking about is the heart, because they work enough in here to where you care about your characters. You feel for them. No, we're not talking Shakespeare, but you do have more development than you might think with this. I mean, even with the wonderful scene where he is kidnapped and you've got Kathy getting slowly drowned in the hot tub, and you have the one guard, and and so Kane finally figures out how to burn his rope. So this is a kid. We're watching this kid. He's trapped in a sauna. He's going to be baked, they figure, and they're going to drown Kathy. So this kid finally musters up enough, and he knows it's going to hurt, and he literally puts his hands on the hot rocks to burn his ropes enough so he could break free. Then he goes out, grabs nunchucks, and starts beating the shit out of this guard. And while he's doing that, he frees Kathy. It's amazing. And the reason that it's extra level amazing is because they have a child doing this, but he's doing it so naturally. The way they handle this, you don't see that a lot with. It always seems a little bit awkward or a little bit too choreographed, but here it's like it just flows with this kid.
Okay. I want to talk about the hot coals for a second.
Yeah.
I can imagine the director going up to Sho Kosugi and saying, okay, we've got this scene where Kane has to escape. And in the script, it says he's going to go over these hot coals and burn off his restraints. Now, we've had the special effects team. They're working really hard right now on making a realistic looking kind of coal lamp thing. So don't worry, he won't be in any danger. And Sho just stopping him saying, no, don't, it's okay. Just get some actual hot coals. He'll put his wrist over them and burn the restraints off. It's cool. He does cool. He does this for fun.
He does this for fun. It's fine. His skin won't burn. He'll be good.
But I'm watching this and I'm like, it looks like they're actually doing it. It's not like adult. It's not like adult hands and they cut away to like the little kid. It's like little kid hands with the restraints over the hot coals. What's going on?
Yeah, Ninja Kane feels no pain. That's right, Ninja Kane. A couple other things. Lee says Death Jacks is an awesome name for caltrops. There you go for your D&D folks out there. You don't have to call them caltrops anywhere. Just call them Death Jacks.
Death Jacks.
And yes, we made Lee almost pee himself by saying martial artery, which again, copyright spoiler room. And we do.
You're welcome, and I'm sorry.
It's beautiful because you get the final sequence, and what I loved about this final sequence too is that Cho, they've established, has been out of the ninja game for a while. And while he's been keeping up his skills to teach his kid, he is a bit rusty, and he's going against a demon ninja, okay? Because he's got the silver mask and the magic stuff going on. Our hero gets put on the ropes a number of times in this main battle with this bad guy, and you're like, are they actually gonna, nah, they're not going to, but it's played up enough to where our hero gets his butt handed to him quite a bit. But, he finds that extra, just one little step, the overconfidence of the bad guy. And that's where he hit the martial artery and stabbed him. And then he removes the sword. And then you get the classic martial arts blood spurt that just flies halfway across the roof, literally, of the building before he falls. Yeah.
Well, you touched on something important. Is in a movie like this, you know who's going to win. Canon's not going to do like a real downer, ending. It might have, at best, it might have something that's kind of ambiguous, like the end of the first Missing in Action,
right?
Where it's more about like he shows up at the embassy and he's like, screw you and your damn lies. But the key, I think, is to make it look like the hero, put him through actual hell and make him kind of earn his victory. I think about the wonderful accent in Die Hard, where John McClane actually has to, like, he's picking the glass out of his
Mhm,
feet from when he had to run across
mhm.
that room, and you're like, I know all the bad guys are going to be toast by the end of this thing, but John McClane is going to be in just about as bad shape, and I feel the same way about Sho Kosugi at the end of this movie.
Yeah, because Sho he takes a number of cuts to the chest and to the legs, I think, at one point, and just he gets hurt in this film, and you're like, yeah, it's like, wow, he's really being walking over the coals. You're not sure if it's going to be a mutual death, or they leave it to where maybe he dies, but he at least killed the bad guy to protect his family or whatnot. And I love how they play it with that, and yeah, this film is just it's it's a wonderful piece of exploitation action film and everything you want, and it holds up today,
It
actually.
really, it does. And going back to what we were talking about earlier, I think it's great that this came out second. I kind of,
Yeah. Hmm.
because I think if you had watched this first and then watch Enter the Ninja, you would think, why are they wasting the wonderful Sho Kosugi on this, bitter assassin type? I mean, it's almost a travesty. As much as I love Franco Nero,
Yeah.
I got you asked me to choose between him and Sho Kosugi, and now maybe you can spoil this for me.
Mm.
Who's the star of the third Ninja movie that we're talking about next week?
It's a female ninja next week. I forgot her name offhand. I had
Is
it
it
written
is it
down, but
is it Shi Kasugi?
no, it's not.
No,
It's not Shikazugi. No, but it is. Sho Kazugi's in the next one as well, but he's not a good. Lucinda Dickey is in the next one.
is
Who
Sho
she would
Kosugi
also.
playing a bad guy?
I don't remember. It's been so long. I know I've seen it once or twice, but it's been so long. But Sho is in that one, and Lucinda Dickey, who was also in Breaking 2 Electric Boogaloo, is in Ninja 3 Domination. So, but that's next week. But back to
Yeah,
this one, a few more tidbits from the wonderful Canon guide is $1 million budget. This film actually made 13 million. It got
wow.
distributed to about 400 or 500 screens. They actually this is the first film that was officially distributed by a large distributor for Canon. MGM contacted them and said, hey, we're going to distribute, this film. And they actually tossed some more money into this movie for the
Wow.
director because, yeah, and MGM picked it because Enter the Ninja kind of started that ninja craze, and it grabbed some popularity. So they wanted in on this craze right now, Hollywood, whatever the trend is, and ninjas were certainly becoming the trend. So they wanted in. So they ended up distributing this to about 400 or 500 screens, and that's why they made like 13 million. I guess it was number one at the box office in New York, where it was for a weekend. Yeah, it's like, and Lee says this is probably his favorite. This is his favorite of the trilogy easily. Yeah, I don't know how Domination is going to even top this. It probably won't, but that's okay because it'll still be ninjas fighting.
Will you hold it against me if I get like a half hour into Domination, I just stop it and just watch this movie again?
I would not blame you. That's for sure. But yeah, Revenge of the Ninja is an amazing piece of canon film. And Lee gives us a little tidbit. He says Ninja 3 is fun as hell, but weird.
Okay,
So
thank you
that's
for
that's what we're looking for.
yes, that gives me hope.
I mean, this film is weird as well. I mean,
And it's fun as hell, and it's all it's weird. Wow,
it's
yeah.
surreal. It's fun. I mean, Braid. It's like when Braid whips out the whole metal ninja mask that you're like, okay, I kind of saw it coming that he was going to be a ninja or whatnot. But I love there's a scene in here where he's talking to Kathy, and she's like, I'm sorry, I slipped up. The kid saw the heroin. He's like, yeah, it's okay. He's like, the organized crime guys, they're going to double cross us, but he's packing his bag like he's headed for like a normal business trip. He just turns around, he looks at his mask, puts it in his little bag. He takes his size out. He's like, oh yeah. He's like literally just like packing for a weekend trip, but it's all his ninja stuff, which apparently all the ninja weaponry that you have in here were actually Sho Kosugi's.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a lot of it was his that he brought to the movie. So that's why there was some care involved, including the wonderful stabby stick. I guess that's the only way you can call it. We mentioned it earlier at the beginning of this podcast, and we'll close it out with mentioning it because it's this wonderful sequence on the roof. Again, it's like a 15-20-minute action sequence between the main bad guy and our hero. At one point, they've got a stick. It's not a buck and a quarter staff. It's like, the stick. You're like, okay. And so then Sho blocks it. And then our man, Ninja Demon, pulls it, and there's a blade in there. Like, oh, okay. So then he's fighting with that, and he's blocking that, and then he gets there. And so he blocks that one. And then he pulls out another section, and it's got another blade in it. And then he stops it again, and he pulls out the last little, it's like a little stub knife out of this thing's got like 4 blades in it. It's a beautiful thing.
He comes prepared. He's a ninja Boy Scout. Wait, okay. Lee has a comment.
Wait, seriously? Sho sells his ninja gear online. It is not cheap. I believe it because it probably is very well crafted and well made for sure.
Will he sell me an autograph, perhaps even a lock of his hair? I didn't even know the guy was still alive. I gotta check this out.
Well, his son Kane would go on doing not only his own movie career, but he was a 5-time competitor in the Ninja Warrior competition. So, so this guy, he knew his stuff. But again, when you're being taught martial arts from when you could, right after you could walk, you're just, especially if you have a teacher like Sho Kosugi.
I could just imagine him having his own like ninja competition series called the Showcase.
Oh wow, you went there.
Yeah,
you really did.
I did.
Wow.
I'm sorry. I got to balance it out with the martial artery,
the martial artery. Yeah. So we'll wrap it up tonight, folks. You know what we're gonna say, but we'll spit it anyway. Is Ian, would you recommend this?
Oh yes, I would recommend this more than most of the movies I saw in 2021.
Most of the new modern movies you've seen in 2021.
Yeah. Forget Power of the Dog. Forget House of Gucci. Well, I haven't seen that one yet, but forget all this other stuff. Just watch Revenge of the Ninja. Like, take the runtime of the average awards contender movie and divide it by the runtime of Revenge of the Ninja, and then watch it that many times. So you got a 3-hour highfalutin Oscar movie. Just watch Revenge of the Ninja twice.
There you go. That I would say that as well. And we mentioned some of the other films being the epitome, but after watching this one, this is if anyone out there, if you're a fan and you're like someone's looking for a gateway into canon films, like what is a canon film? Why are people so crazy about these films, especially the ones that were produced specifically by these two gentlemen, the ones that they produced and or directed? Have them watch this, because no, they didn't direct this one, but they produced it, and you watch this movie and it has everything that why people love canon films is in this movie. Because it surprises you. It shouldn't work. Ian has watched a ton of films. He is a Rotten Tomatoes critic, folks. He is a major member of
Don't hold that against me.
Of critic associations, whereas I am a member of the Cowboy Association. But in any case, and yes, trust his opinion over mine, if anything. But
no, because Mark, as I've mentioned before, you're turning me on to a lot of these movies that I just haven't seen. These wonderful corners of cinema history keeping me sane amongst all
Yeah.
this, highfalutin crap. But I think it's also a gateway not only to canon films, but also like martial arts and
Mhm.
ninja movies. If you're like, I don't understand what's so cool about ninjas, this movie is everything that's cool about ninjas.
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, if you watch Enter the Ninja and this one, which that's the order you really should watch these in anyway, you watch these 2 films, everything you've seen in ninja cinema in American, I'll put it that way, in American ninja cinema came from these 2 movies, literally. I mean, from the way the villain is, to your demon ninjas, to everything that you've seen really spawned from these 2 movies. It started the ninja craze that lasted until the early 90s when it finally tapered off because it got so saturated. But yeah, and you wouldn't think of it because people are like, oh, canon, it rise and fall, and they made B movie. No, they for a while were trendsetters as far as the ninja movies go, because not a lot of American audiences, like we mentioned with Enter the Ninja, even knew what ninjas were, in American cinema. It's like, so there you go, folks. A wonderful film. It's just all the kind of entertaining. And Lee says he is just a bit of a Sho Kosugi fan. I couldn't tell, Lee. But so glad Lee could join us. Robert, Ginger, Gingham, Gingham Ginger, join us. All you fine folks and you folks out there listening, I hope you've been enjoying these canon films that we covered. And all the films this year have been a wild ride. We've got 2 more coming. One of them is finishing off the Ninja trilogy, in quotes. And then we're ending it with hopefully a very special crew member joining Ian and I to talk about the last film for the last movie that was theatrically released by Canon Group proper. So that's going to be exciting. But one thing
it's gonna happen. By the way, it has to happen.
It has to happen.
I'm super excited for that.
It's the only way. Just like last year, the only way we could end our 52 degrees KB was with ending it on the Friday the 13th episode. This one is going to be ended special to close out our canon special episode series. So hopefully we can make it happen. And before we get to the License to Shill, Ian, I will say, I think I found the connection, even though they don't carry the same storyline. I think I kind of found the connection between these 2 that could tie them together as being actually in the same world, in that they said Braden went to Japan and trained at a dojo there for 20 some years. It could be the same ninja dojo, because there was only one that they were talking about that our man Franco Nero trained at in the first film. So therefore they could have came from the same school.
I love that. I do. I wonder if there's I'll be curious. I'll be looking out to see if there's anything in Ninja 3 The Domination that might suggest this dojo. And what I think would be wonderful is having a trilogy with that connection, but never explicitly coming out with it. It's just like an in-joke that the filmmakers would have.
Because they aren't actually really, I mean, they're referred to as the Ninja trilogy because Canon produced 3 ninja films right back to back just about. But when they mentioned that, I'm like, that could be the connection. He studied at the same school as, the Sho Kosugi bad guy version studied at, that Franco Nero also studied at. So, I mean, you could connect it that, because they don't specify, but at the same time, there's not a lot of ninja dojos at that time in Japan training ninjas. So could be the same school. He just didn't have to do the display like there was in, the hey, look at me, I can do this too montage. So we'll close it out, folks, with our License to Shill. As always, thank you to our live watchers. Thank you to our listeners, as always. And now, License to Shill, Mr. Ian Simmons, please, the floor is, of course, yours.
Well, thank you. I'm Ian Simmons. I run Kicking the Seat, which you can find at kickseat.com. I'm also on YouTube. You can just look up the Kicking the Seat YouTube channel. I'm also here every Tuesday talking about wonderful canon films with Mark. Truly one of the highlights of my week, and hopefully for you all as well. But yeah, Kicking the Seat YouTube channel. That's my main kind of thing right now. I do interviews and reviews and roundtables and stuff several times a week. Although it's weird, due to a scheduling conflict, I didn't actually put out any content last week except for the Hawkeye live stream. I was like, what? I'm constantly working on movie stuff all the time, but I just realized I didn't actually put anything out. But this week I've got like 3 or 4 things.
Were you feeling okay or something?
No, it was just a scheduling thing.
Wow.
I had a review set up for Friday.
Mhm.
The person I was going to talk to, it like slipped their mind, but he's like teaching like 2 college classes right
Sure.
now and a whole bunch of other stuff. So like, I get it. We got a rain check for tomorrow.
Well, I hope that still works out for you. As far as us folks, it's a slow week for me. I only got 6 reviews up on the YouTube channel for the final cut. We do have an interview I got to do with some of the cast from a film called Butterflies, which will be up later this week. Look for that on the iTunes channel, as well as an interview I recently did with Tim Connery, not associated with Sean Connery at all, but he did a wonderful, fun little indie slasher called Death to Metal. And we did that interview, and you can find that on the iTunes channel as well. So check out all that wonderful stuff. And we got a lot more great stuff coming before the end of the year. So stay tuned, folks. And I'm looking forward to coming up and starting to get the things going for the horror of 1988, which will be our 2022 special series, which you won't want to miss. So until next time, folks, we'll just say good night, everyone.
Good night.